Hey everyone, it's Kaitlyn Cole, and this is the very first episode of Calling All Creatives. I want this podcast to be a place where you can come to feel inspired and empowered, a place where you can connect with other creatives and hear their stories, and a place where you can learn and grow. No matter if you're just starting out in the creative industry or if you're a longtime pro, I wholeheartedly believe that we will never stop learning and growing. This podcast will consist of all creatives. So that means musicians, photographers, writers, illustrators, business owners, videographers, and so much more because everyone is creative, everyone has a story to share, and creativity is everywhere. I wanted to share my background in this first episode so you can get to know me a little bit better and understand why I started Calling All Creatives. So I started with photography when I was about 14 years old. I've always been a huge daddy's girl. Everything that he did, I had to do too. And he's the one that really got me into photography, and it just clicked, and I was in love. I started taking pictures of my sisters and our pets or like little things in the backyard just to practice, and I started posting them on Facebook, and I had family and friends DMing me and messaging me like, oh, would you mind taking pictures of my family? And it kind of, started snowballing, and so my dad was like, Kaitlyn, people want your work. You got to start charging for this. And I said, okay. And so he kind of helped me start my business way back in the beginning. I mean, I was like 15 at the time. I had no idea what starting a business entailed. I had no idea about anything. But I, kept taking pictures every day. I was committed to this. I knew this is what I wanted to do. My senior year of high school, I applied to Northwood University, which is a small business school in Midland, Michigan. And they had a scholarship opportunity where if you had your own business before you started at Northwood, you could earn a pretty nice chunk of change. So I applied for that. I made it to the final round. I ended up not getting the scholarship, but I made a invaluable connection there. And one of those connections led me to photographing all the sporting events at Northwood. So I remember I was asked to photograph the very first football game, and I turned in my photos after that. And shout out to our SID, Travis McCurdy. He loved all my work, and that's what led me to photograph, all the home games for all the sporting events, all 4 years of my college experience, actually. And that, oh my goodness, I got so much experience. I learned so much. I got so much practice. So I am forever grateful for that. And then actually my sophomore year of college, I wanted to keep expanding my photography. So that's when I started getting into Photoshop. And I remember walking up to Travis's office and I was like, hey, do you mind if I start, making team posters, game day graphics, whatever else there was? And he said yes. And he kind of let me have, free range on everything, which again, I'm forever grateful for. I got to learn Photoshop for the next 3 years and practice doing all the sporting events again. And it was just invaluable. So Northwood is definitely an important part of my career, and I'm so super thankful. My sophomore year, I also interned with the Detroit Lions team photographer. I had worked for him for about a year, and I had worked. It was a lot of long hours. I didn't get paid, but I knew it would pay off, and it did. So after that year that I worked for him, he recognized my work ethic, and as a reward, he let me photograph a Detroit Lions home game. I remember I was so excited. I photographed the first game, turned in my photos again, and he called me. It was Monday during one of my classes, and I immediately stepped out of the room, and he had just told me that he loved my work and all that stuff, and I was so excited because he offered to allow me to photograph the rest of all the home games with him for that season. After the 2016 to 17 season with the Lions, I started pursuing some other things and really started focusing more heavily on my business. I joined a BNI group, and that was about 30 minutes from where I was in college. So I would drive every Wednesday, 30 minutes to the meeting that started at 7 a.m. I am not a morning person either. That's how committed I was to this. I would get out of that at 8:30, drive a half hour back to make it to my college classes in time. But doing that for a year, I made a connection through that, which allowed me to photograph the Great Lakes Loons, which is a minor league baseball team. And I got to photograph the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game. That was an amazing experience as well. Shout out to Matt and Jenny. So actually a month or two after that, I got a call from Matt, and he said that he had submitted one of my photos for photo of the year. And I was super excited. I had no idea. And I ended up actually winning. So I won the minor league baseball photo of the year in 2017, which was awesome. I stayed super focused on networking and trying to meet as many possible people as I could. So I was reaching out to everybody on social media, trying to go to in-person networking events. But I actually met Andy Shippey on Twitter, and we built up a relationship, and that led to me photographing a University of Michigan football game. And then he actually connected me with Katie, who was with Michigan baseball at the time. And so I had 2 connections there, which was great. I also was reaching out to Paul, who is now my good friend, and he works with country music star Granger Smith. So he allowed me to photograph one of Granger Smith's concert. And then I also started doing some design work for Yee apparel. I'm sorry, I got to say it like that. So through the Lions, I also met one of my super good friends, Luke McKay. We've done so much work together, and he referred me to Vayner Sports, so I drove down to Kentucky and photographed one of their athletes. So this whole time throughout college, I'm studying business. My major was entrepreneurship, and I'm teaching photo and design to myself on the side through, trial and error, YouTube videos, and having some really good mentors. I graduated in May 2018 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. At that time, I was extremely obsessed with the sports scene, and I wanted to keep expanding. So I found out about this conference called MLC, which stands for Major Level Creative. So I attended that in Chicago. So I signed up for that. I went by myself. I paid for everything by myself. It wasn't a cheap ticket item, but I knew it was super important, and I decided to go. So I networked with as many people as possible. I didn't know anybody. I would literally, just get over my fear and walk up to people, shake their hands, introduce myself. And I have met some of my absolute closest friends from that event. After MLC, I came home and started applying for job positions right away. I remember I was applying for some pretty big Power 5 schools, I think a couple professional teams. I was getting no's left and right. I was so deflated at that time. So I decided to buy an apartment in Midland and start my business up full time. So I remember I had moved into that apartment, and I think I was there for like a week. And then Katie, who I had made that connection with at Michigan baseball, and she told me that West Virginia had an opening for a position. And so I told her that I was totally interested. And long story short, I did the phone interview. I got flown out and did the in-person interview, got offered the job, accepted it. And it was just funny because I had not even unpacked all my boxes from that apartment in Midland, and I was packing everything right back up and moving to West Virginia. So as the athletics graphic designer at West Virginia, I was in a little bit of a unique situation. In the Coliseum, I had an office, and I would work for all the athletic teams there on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then I had an office over at the football stadium too, and I would work there Monday and Wednesday. So my title at West Virginia was athletics graphic designer, but I love photography, so I also photographed a lot of the games. So at one of the West Virginia football games, Antonio Brown came to Morgantown because his cousin Hollywood Brown played for Oklahoma at that time. So Antonio Brown was on the sidelines, and obviously I was down there too photographing the game, and in between plays, I would take photos of Antonio Brown on the sideline. And I posted them on my Instagram story that night. I tagged him, but I had zero intention of him ever seeing them. To my surprise, he DM'd me, and he was saying that he loved him, and he was asking me if I had any more. We chit-chatted for a little bit about, how we both have some roots in mid-Michigan. He went to Central Michigan, which is about 45 minutes away from me. And, he invited me to come photograph him at Heinz Field when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I actually photographed his last 2 games as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I worked for West Virginia University in the Big 12 for a year. And then after that year, I decided that I wanted to move back to Michigan and start my business full time. I am forever grateful for West Virginia and all the people that I met there. I love you guys so much. You're like my family, but you already know that. I absolutely loved being in the sports industry, but I just wanted something new. I wanted a new challenge. And so now I am a portrait and wedding photographer in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I love being a creative, whether that was during my sports career or now with me running my business full time. All of us creatives have so much to share and so much to learn. And I wanted this to be the place to do it all. We all draw inspiration from each other, and that's what makes us great. I want this to be a place for you to find that inspiration, learn from people who are like and different from you, and grow both personally and professionally. So cheers to us and to our industry.